nothing left for me to hate, so I can lay me down, my brothers, on the ground. I bled today until Coyote comes to raise me up and carries me
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
A good evening or whatever time it is. I hope you're well. It's a bit chilly here, but the radiator's just come back on. See, I had to put a little dip period in because the gas bill came in and it was a riot. Anyway, hello, welcome to the Scottish Rugby podcast. I am Iain Hay. I am hosting tonight. Unfortunately, life has got in the way for some of our regular contributors, and they have to divert their attentions elsewhere. But we're a big family here. It's like Fast and Furious franchise, ever expanding, ever throwing new people in. So I have one sometimes cameo, he's like the Ryan Reynolds of the piece, and I'm sure he'll take that as a massive compliment. No offence, well, I mean you're both beautiful men. Doctor with his rugby views. It's Allan MacDonald. Hello, Allan. How are you?
Hi, Ian. I'm good. Thank you. Thank you for that introduction. I will definitely take being the Ryan Reynolds.
I mean, I got given the Sebastian Stan of the Marvel Universe, so I was quite happy with that.
Yeah. Also a compliment.
Do you have a favourite of the Fast and Furious franchise, Allan?
I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan.
I'm not particularly either. There's one where the rock bottom Jason Statham through a glass table. That's quite a good one.
I managed to fall asleep in front of the Expendables. Kind of action movie car chase films aren't really me.
Fair dues. Right, so we'll just remove him from the studio right now. But also joining me, and like I said, this is a bit ramshackle, and I'm as unprofessional as always. He goes by the handle of Border Badger. I have not asked his surname. I have done it there on private chat. Mark, hello, Mark. Do you wish to reveal your surname, or is it?
No, it doesn't matter. It's Reilly.
Really?
I simply
is that Eilly or I?
Yeah, the Irish spelling. Yeah, Eilly. Yeah. No, I picked up the nickname of Badger many years ago because I've been going grey since my early 20s. So by the time I was about 26, I had badger coloured hair. It's a little more salt and pepper nowadays, but so that's why I picked it up. And in the early days of using Twitter before it became a complete, we're not on Patreon, are we?
Not yet. No, we'll say that later. Thank you. I have to keep
before it went the way it went. I wanted it to be my pub account to be able to just chat like I would chat in the pub, and therefore kept it largely anonymous. But now that we're on very friendly Blue Sky, I'm quite happy for my face and name to be out there.
Excellent. I've had issues uploading camera pictures, so I'm currently Ryan Gosling and Drive on Blue Sky. I should mention, of course, like I said, this is the Scottish Rugby. Oh, sorry, Mark. Important question I have to ask, as left from the founding father, the Cameron of House Black. If you were to play for the Barbarians, what would your socks be?
Okay. Thanks. I played at school, and which was Knox Academy down in Haddington, and I played for Haddington, but not. I struggled to reach the giddy heights of mediocre, so I didn't even play first team. But that's probably where I really cut my teeth. So I would probably say Haddington. I did go on. I moved to Wales at the ripe old age of 19, and I played for a few teams down there. Some odd matches. Played a lot of social rugby down there, if there's such a thing as social rugby in Wales. But there was a team. God, I want to say they were 5th division, something like that, and I ran out for them a couple of times. They were called the Old Iltidians. And yeah, I'll tell you some stories about those matches when we're not on a timer.
Should we save that for Patreon, perhaps?
Quite feasibly, yeah. But so yeah, I would say I would go for a Haddington and an Old Iltidians.
Grand. Well, thank you for coming along, Mark. Do you have a preferred film from the Fast and Furious franchise at all?
I confess, I watch a huge amount of films and chewing gum TV, and I have never watched a single one of the Fast and Furious movies.
Do you know, they came on Pointless yesterday, and I managed to get a couple of Pointless answers from that. And I told Rona, my other half, I mentioned that like Helen Mirren was in the last one. But really? I went, oh yeah, do you know what makes it even better? She playing Jason Statham's Ma. The look of disgust on her face. Oh, but me, I'm not a big fan of the Staith. Anyway, you're not here for Fast and Furious or the Staith. You're here for the rugby news and views. So I'm going to bang on with the news, chaps. Feel free to add anything. I might throw some questions at you. We'll see how it goes. First up, I think of biggest importance, the Women's Tenants Premiership Final at Union Park, which is the home of the Corstorphine Cougars. I think they went through the whole season unbeaten, so they, as winners of the league, gets the right to host the final. Now, it was going to be broadcast on BBC Scotland, but due to the condition, Union Park doesn't have floodlights, sorry. So instead, the game will be broadcast live on scottishrugby.org, and kick-off time has been moved to 1:40 p.m. So if you had intentions of watching that at all, if you had it recorded, set on a timer, it's wrong now. You'll need to go to scottishrugby.org to watch that game. Also, sticking with women's rugby, the squads for the Celtic Challenge have been announced, both the Glasgow and Edinburgh squads. It's a sort of semi-pro, I don't know, but it's like a sort of URC to try and enhance the women's game. So they've both picked 30-player squads. There's been a few movements actually across from Edinburgh to Glasgow, like Freya Walker and Briar McNamara were names I could particularly saw standing out. The first game of that competition is a week on Friday. It's on the 20th, if my date's right. Yeah, Friday the 20th. That'll be at the Hive, and that's going to be Edinburgh v Glasgow. Gentlemen, do you have anything you wish to add to any of that?
Well, I was just going to say that Highland rugby player Ailey McGilvery's in the Glasgow Warriors squad, so well done, Ailey. She's an absolutely cracking player. She played in the age group above my daughter, and it was always a pleasure to watch her play. So I'm delighted that she's back in Scotland. She did she got a scholarship to one of the American universities to play rugby, and this is her back, and is now playing for Glasgow Warriors. So, and she was Scotland under 18. So watch this space.
I think some of the switches are quite interesting as well. Like you say, it was Briar McNamara really stood out to me. I think she'll be a big loss to Edinburgh. I'm surprised she's not knocking on the international door already. She's a fantastic player. So I don't know anything behind the logic, whether it was maybe she lives closer to Glasgow, maybe it's as simple as that, or they're trying to balance out the playing pool to make sure the top talent all get games. But yeah, that I found that very interesting because there was a couple of real standouts moved over.
Yeah, one omission I found particularly interesting was Emma Turner, who the Corstorphine Cougars captain, who was playing for Glasgow last year, but maybe she has other commitments in her personal life. Who knows? So we'll move on from there to Mark Dodson and his massive bonuses may have left the SRU, but the stationery cupboard needs refilling. There's been a lot of re-signings over the last couple of days. Yesterday, Duhan van der Merwe, big handsome Johnny Bravo, the current leading try scorer for Scotland, on 30. He is extending his stay at the Hive / Murrayfield. Obviously, there was rumours. I mean, he's a much in demand talent, Mark, isn't he, Duhan? But then he's given his explanations for staying. Are you happy to see him stay?
As an Edinburgh fan, yes. As a Scotland fan, potentially not. He's an incredible player, and he's bound to have had offers on the table left, right, and centre. I'm one of those who I do have a bit of a fear that Edinburgh is becoming a little bit of a nice place to be. If you know what I mean by that, and I'm slightly concerned about that.
It's almost like it's a security blanket for pros that are away and it hasn't worked out for. And look, it's great that Duhan's there and his game time would be more managed, etc., than it would be somewhere like France or even the Premiership. But he would have been one that I wouldn't have been that sad to see go, just because he could have gone and sort of developed. And I think you're right. There's a risk that players are sort of sticking to their comfort zone rather than being stretched. Although hopefully it'll work out well.
Yeah. I don't even
know
if
something that Craig, a resident Edinburgh fan.
Sorry, I missed that.
Oh, sorry, there was a bit of lag there. Our Craig, our resident Edinburgh fan, he's said recently, he is concerned that some players are kind of too embedded almost, and they can form maybe not cliques as such, but they have too much control, and it goes against the coach. And like Allan said, like they're settling into their comfort zone. But it maybe just seems that way because of results with Edinburgh. Then when they play with Scotland, it's a different kettle of fish. But I mean, I suppose it's nice that he's so happy in the city. He wants to say, and him and his wife have a great life here. But like Mark, do you think it's maybe limiting chances for other guys? And like you said, although he says, he's aware that he has to develop his game somewhat. Do you think it would be better to try and do that in Pastors Renew?
I think potentially it would. I'm not convinced that the way he's playing at Edinburgh gets the most out of his game. Whether that's just because he's not coming looking for work or whether he's not being coached to look for work. Scotland seems to get far more out of him than Edinburgh does, which implies to me it's not his game, it's something more. And maybe moving away would help that. But I think there's definitely, it's that balance to be struck about having all of our players in local teams and still having pathways for youngsters coming through. And Duhan signing up for another 2 years, he's going to be front and centre on the team sheet for all of that time. So that's a wing spot taken. Simple as that,
Yeah, speaking of, one of those could be filled, although I think his preferred position is outside centre. Matt Curry has also signed an extension. That was today. He's going to stay on until 2026. Allan, we've seen a bit of him summer tests, and I think he came on against Portugal, didn't he? Or Fiji, perhaps. I think it was Fiji. Yeah, he looks like a pretty good player. Edinburgh, though, their centre partnerships. Where do you think he fits in? Do you think he's going to usurp the constantly injured Mark Bennett? Do you think he's going to be a go-to guy for Edinburgh? over these next couple of years?
I think Bennett's, naturally, Bennett's obviously had bad injuries and things, and he's at an age where he's coming towards the end of his career, not at the end of his career, but coming towards it. And you think that, maybe Curry's got the chance to be the main man with Bennett coming in and playing more of a cameo. And Curry looks to me the best of the sort of Edinburgh centres, with the possible exception of Tupelo Minor, but we've not seen enough of him to judge him. We're basically just saying he's probably good because his brother is at the moment. Don't get me wrong, that is some genetic stock that we should be taking advantage of. But
Greenock stock.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, Greenock grannies. Honestly, I worked in a factory in Greenock with scary, as my brother called them, scary women for Port Glasgow, and Greenock. Honestly, you don't mess with a Greenock granny. Yeah, I think Bennett, Curry's probably the best of the young Edinburgh centres, and it's good that he's signed on. I think he's got a chance to develop and kick on.
Mark obviously has been a bit of a hodgepodge. Edinburgh I think injuries, like Allan has said, has played a part. Edinburgh don't seem to have a settled 12-13. Do you think Curry's man to put a stamp on one of those jerseys?
I think he's good enough. He certainly. It's difficult, isn't it? Because it's a partnership. I mean, I know.
I was thinking, so stock-wise, you've got James Lang, Mosesi, Matt Curry. Who else? I had someone else and it's gone. Christine left, obviously, which was a damn shame. I like Christine.
Bennett's usually injured.
Yeah. I don't know. He's certainly a big guy. He's a powerful unit of a man. As I say, do you think he's got the rest of the nous?
I think he has the skills. But as I say, I think it's a partnership and it depends on how they want to play. I think the reason that we've spoken about Huey Piloto might have been Iain that coined that name, but the reason we get so tied up about that being so good is it's both of them. Sione is fantastic, but what really makes that is both of them playing together in the style that Glasgow need. If Edinburgh could come up with that, I could easily see Curry being one of those people, but I'm not convinced that they have that solidity of game plan yet.
I think that's the difference. Oh, sorry, Iain.
No, I think as well the guy inside, I think, is one of the other issues, isn't it, Allan, who's playing at 10?
Yeah, 10 and 12. But I think also it goes further back to that. Honestly, Edinburgh feel like they're in their Danny Wilson years with Sean Everett. It just feels like the team culture isn't there. The players play. You said yourself, Mark. The players play better for Scotland. That Scotland get more out of them, and it just feels like Edinburgh just don't have the culture in the team at the moment, and they don't have that grit. When Glasgow very much do, and Edinburgh need to find their Franco.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of Franco and one of his generals, I saw this today and I was so delighted. Kyle Steyn has re-signed. He's staying until 2028.
I missed that today. Was that just today, was it?
Yeah, that was announced today, yeah. Now, one of the sad things about leaving X, thanks, Allan, is that Kyle Steyn's dad no longer follows me and can't repost my tweets. But Kyle Steyn, for me, Allan, I rank him amongst. He's approaching legendary status, and it was something that I never imagined. Say, like during Danny Wilson era, I remember he was getting picked during the Rennie times at 13. I wanted him playing at 13 just so Nick Rigg was getting played. I did not expect him to then on become like not just one of the top talents, but so influential in the team. What do you make of his rise as an outsider almost?
Yeah, I think I view Edinburgh and Glasgow as Scotland Development East and Scotland Development West. I'm a bit like Cammy in that regard. But I think Stein, the closest sort of parallel to Stein is Sean Maitland. I think a player that just didn't necessarily do anything flash, but just as and if you're looking at it in computer game terms, Stein's not max in any particular. He's not max in any particular thing, but what he is sort of like high in all of them. And his all-round game is fantastic. He's just a great player.
I could literally find a tweet that I sent. You know, Andrew Ford that does the rugby compilations. Yeah, there's a tweet where I've said like essentially that. I'm like, he's like Maitland plus. Every stat is like 8. Mark, this is one of the things. I mean, with one of the big arguments that was getting made ahead of the Open Test was, should Doohan be in the team ahead of Kyle Stein? I mean, they're obviously very different, but you know, it's.
Yeah, I was genuinely gutted that Kyle Stein was injured, because I think, irrespective of which one was picked, I think the debate would have been buckets of fun, because I think you can easily debate on either side. I could. It's horses for courses, right? Stein, you know, Doohan offers what Doohan offers. He's a massive unit and he knows how to run. Stein's got a far wider breadth of skills than that, I think. So I think it depends on who we're playing and what game we want to play. But I could easily make the argument for Stein. Easily make it.
I would. So I completely agree. And the way I came down on this, Mark, was I would have said that you would have picked Stein for the South Africa game and Doohan for Australia, just because Doohan could have made hay. But when you're talking about a game where defence and sort of like execution and everything,
balls go up in the air.
Yeah, absolutely. Then Kyle Stein's your man, and your players play better around him because he sets an example.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great way of looking at it.
Yeah, I mean, it's an embarrassment of riches now, isn't it? You know, we've got Darcy, Doohan on 30 tries, Darcy Graham on 29, Kyle Stein, who we're talking about should be kicking Doohan out the team possibly, but I think he's got like something like 13 tries in 24 tests, 14 and 23, and he's got 4 against Tonga. He scores doubles against France. Also, we'll quickly go on the European games. We'll do a quick review of them. I think we've got about 10 minutes.
We've come a long way, Iain, from playing Simon Daniele on the wing for us. That's all
we have a bit, and as much as I love Sean Lamont, I'm not going to call him Lamont because that's not how you pronounce it. He just didn't score enough tries, did he? Although he didn't have Finn Russell.
I was going to say, Sean Lamont, with the current 3 quarters outside him, if you could get a TARDIS and pick him up, Sean would have done all right and he'd be in the conversation, I think. But he wouldn't have been he wouldn't have been the only pick in the wing the way that he was.
And even like Maitland doing Tommy Seymour. Oh, I love Tommy Seymour. Anyway, I'll go back to Europe. So we'll start with Glasgow against Sale, 38-19 win. Because one of the try scorers was the prolific Kyle Rowe. He's like the bargain buy of the century, isn't he?
Yeah.
Mark, then let's now, of course, the sort of highlight reel guy was George Horn, who, despite getting himself a yellow card in the first half, also got himself a hat-trick of tries. The second of one was so Dupont-esque it would make Antoine Dupont pour a bottle of champagne down the sink in the lights. Obviously, you took, Ali Price ended up moving over to Edinburgh because Franco said George Horn was his guy. What do you make of George Horn, and more particularly, like, why doesn't Gregor Townsend? Why does Gregor Townsend think Ali Price is in better form?
The short answer is best kept for the closed shop chat, but I have no idea why Gregor has not been picking George Horn. To me, he's the best scrum half we have and have had available for some time. Even on the bench, even pick him on the bench. Put Ben White to start if you want, and put George Horne on the bench. I used to, watching Glasgow years ago, I used to think it was absolutely terrifying that when the defences were beginning to tire, they'd bring on Nico. And you could do the same thing with George Horne, right? And
he's like Nico.
I don't know why we're not making more use of that. I genuinely don't understand it.
My feeling is that I think probably George Horne is the bench scrum half unless we're doing a 6-2 split. And just because of Jamie Dobie's proficiency in the wing. And I know Horne can play there, but Dobie's played there in international games and played at fullback in international games. He's probably, he's taller. I think Dobie's got dibs on a 6-2 split, and he's become the 6-2 split guy. But I do think Horne is if we've got a standard bench, Horne's the man that plays against a tiring defence, I think.
I'd be interested to know, and I genuinely, it's my own limitation. I don't know enough about scrum half play. Why would we start Ben White and Horne on the bench than potentially start Horne and Dobie on the bench? I genuinely don't know. I can't recognise enough about what is better in Ben White's play.
I asked my cousin about this because he played scrum half. Like you, I mean, scrum halves had done most of the work before my head came out of the scrum. So I had no idea. My idea of scrum halves is they shout at me to run into people either with or without the ball. But I think so. He was a scrum half, and he kind of said that when you look at it, England when they were at their best always picked their game management scrum half first, and the wild card came off the bench. And I think Ben White is more of a game manager. Horne's game management has definitely got better than it was. It was quite suspect before. Not suspect, but it was a less good part of his game. And I think now it's substantially better. But even so, I think it comes more naturally to Ben White. So you've got Ben White to sort of move players about, tire out the other forwards, perhaps cleverly place box kicks, etc. And then Horne to be a live wire late on a tiring defence would be my take on it. But as I say, that's my cousin's take on it. But he's who I trust in scrum half play.
One thing I've heard is that they reckon George Horne's defensive game isn't up to scratch. I'm not entirely sure what aspect of it, if that's positional or tackling wise. But his box kicks are. I mean, he used to play a bit of fly half as well. I mean, one of his social media handles was George Horne 10. And we know he goal kicks brilliantly. So that's an aspect of his game which doesn't need work on. And we know he's a ridiculous try scorer. There's two players who have scored 50 tries for Glasgow Warriors, DTH van der Merwe and George Horne. I think Johnny Matthews is catching up pretty rapidly as well. But I think that, one of the things that Scott Steele was picked for, I remember when I was doing, during COVID times, doing a lot of Zoom press conference calls, and Mike Blair was saying, Scott Steele is the best defensive scrum half in the Northern Hemisphere. He tackles brilliantly. He's a solid little so-and-so. Ben White.
You could play six. Let's not forget.
Oh, indeed, he was forced to. But no, I do find it a bit odd that George has. I think he's grown out of that, or he should have been allowed to grow out of that. He's just a madcap wee guy that runs on at the end and causes chaos. Because he can cause chaos from the start, as we saw. It doesn't matter if they're tired or not. He will find a gap, especially when you've got someone like Hugh Jones running lines for you. Hugh Jones, Jesus, I am so annoyed about how his first spell at the Warriors went under Dave Rennie, because it was just an absolute disgrace that Nick Grigg was getting picked ahead of Hugh bloody Jones.
Well, Hugh Jones, I think one of the things that we don't talk about enough is how much Hugh Jones's defence has come on. Glasgow won the championship, and their defence was a massive part of that. And Hugh Jones's defence used to be a weakness, but I do not think you can say that now. I don't think we talk enough about how much better he's got since that time.
Especially because people mention that the 13 role is so important in defence, Mark. And I'm thinking the 61-21 scudding we took off England at Twickenham, where him and Dunbar didn't click together. But now you look at him now, and he's a much more complete player, don't you think?
Oh, massively. Yeah, massively. I mean, he's clearly learned better. His skill set's better, but I also think he was shaded a lot in the international scene by Chris Harris, and I think unfairly so. I don't think his defence wasn't phenomenal, but everybody was raving about Scotland's centre defence was all about Chris Harris, and I'm not convinced it was all about Chris Harris. I think he was the one that was marshalling it at the time, but I think Hugh Jones at the time was maybe taking a back seat because of that. But sorry, Alan, carry on.
No, sorry, I didn't mean to cut across you, but I think Harris probably did marshal the defence. I think Harris was great. Yeah, but the thing is, with the advent of Shoney at 12, Shoney gives you most of what Harris gave you in defence. Presents more attacking threat on his own and allows you to play Hugh Jones. Mm-hmm. So that's why Shoney effectively, I think Shoney at 12 effectively ended both Sam Johnson's and Chris Harris's international careers, because he was able to do what they did, but more.
Yeah. Do you know what else I think is absolutely brilliant in defence, and who's improved in defence? Finn Russell.
Yeah,
he's brilliant at tackling now. Nobody gets past him. I think it's the croissants have helped a bit. Remember this game for Bath against?
He's always been good. He's always been fearless.
Yeah, I mean that famous game against Racing '92 when he played Dan Carter off the pack. He took Dimitri Svarzeski down, rampaging just off the bench, dropped him.
I don't think he's ever been afraid to tackle. I think you're right, Alan. He's fearless. He's always thrown himself into tackles. But I think in the past, we're in the mode of
tweaking.
Whereas, I mean, what was the one? There was a clip. It was last season where he took down a second row in a last gasp.
Yeah, tackle. I think it was Cameron. It was the Champions Cup. I think it was Cameron Wokey. Possibly,
yeah.
It was a former teammate.
Considering the size difference, that's not to be sniffed at.
His technique was exceptional. You just got under double underhook, bang, and he did it a couple of times in that game. Actually, he was superb. And then he slotted like a 40-meter drop goal, and you could see the Bath chairman like, that's why I pay him so much.
Oh no, Finn's worth every penny.
Oh yeah, I think that was the word to. But anyway, lads, you know what? I think we have fulfilled our half hour. That has gone quite smoothly, I think.
It has.
Great.
Yeah,
cool. So we'll just take a little break, and then we'll come back with the Patreons, where you can say naughty words that I usually say. Anyway, so thank you to all you listeners. Thank you very much to our newest guest, Mark Reilly.
Thank you.
And Mr. Allan MacDonald. Sorry, the good Dr. MacDonald.
I don't insist on that title. My brother would also point out I don't have a PhD, so I'm not actually a real doctor, so it's all good, Iain. Thank you.
Right, well, thank you all for... I think there's 5 people watching. Cheers. Especially if it's you, Ma. Anyway, right, I'll go and try and figure out how to turn this stuff off. We'll take a wee break, and then we'll come back for the Patreon, if I can figure it out. Right, cheers.
Yes, I'm on the
all. Bye.
Cheers.
Bye.
There's an outro video.